The sun rose gently over the vast Congolese forest, its golden rays piercing through the thick canopy. The forest was alive with the sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves as the morning breeze whispered through the trees. Deep in the heart of the wilderness, a hunter sat outside his modest hut, enjoying the serenity of the dawn. His spear leaned against the wall beside him, and his bow, along with a quiver full of arrows, lay ready for the day's hunt. He was a skilled hunter, well respected among his people, yet he often found himself pondering the mysteries of fate and the balance of life and death in the wild. Suddenly, his peaceful moment was interrupted by desperate cries echoing through the trees. The hunter, a man of instinct and caution, sprang to his feet, his senses sharpening. The screams were coming from deep within the forest. Clutching his spear, he moved swiftly towards the sound, his heart pounding with anticipation. What he found left him momentarily speechless. A massive tree had collapsed, its thick trunk trapping 3 creatures beneath its weight, a man, a lion, and a snake. They all writhed in distress, their eyes pleading for salvation. "Please, hunter," the man cried, his voice trembling with desperation. "Save me. I am your fellow man. If you show me kindness today, I may be the one to help you in your darkest hour." The lion, his golden mane entangled with leaves and dust, let out a weak but dignified growl. "Hunter, you and I have shared this forest for years. I have seen you hunt, and yet I have never harmed you. Though I am a beast, I have always respected you. If you show me mercy, I shall repay your kindness in ways you cannot yet imagine." The snake, its scaled body pinned awkwardly beneath the trunk, hissed softly. "Hunter, I know you fear and despise me, but today, I beg you for my life. If you free me, I swear upon the spirit of the forest that I will never bring you harm." The hunter hesitated. He was not a fool. He knew that the lion was a predator capable of great destruction, the snake a deceiver with venomous fangs, and the man, well, men were often ungrateful and treacherous. A deep internal conflict waged within him. His logical mind told him to leave them to their fate, but something in his heart stirred with pity. Against his better judgment, he freed them all. Days passed, and the hunter thought little of his fateful decision. But fate, as always, had plans of its own. One afternoon, the king's daughter, along with her attendants, wandered into the forest to bathe in the river. The sun shone brightly upon the water, and the maidens laughed and splashed playfully, oblivious to the silent eyes that watched them from the shadows. From behind the thick underbrush, the lion lay in wait. With a mighty leap, he sprang forward, his roar shattering the tranquility. Panic erupted as the attendants screamed and fled in terror. The lion seized the princess in his powerful jaws, carrying her away effortlessly. The terrified young woman could only clutch at her captor's mane as he bounded through the forest, his destination unknown. But the lion did not take her to his lair. Instead, he carried her to the hunter's humble dwelling. Gently placing her on the ground, the lion looked at the hunter and spoke. "Do you remember the day I was trapped beneath the tree? You saved me, and I promise to repay you. This woman is my gift to you." The hunter, shocked beyond words, knelt before the princess. He had admired many women in his village, yet none had ever accepted his courtship. Here, before him, was a woman of unmatched beauty and royal blood. "My lady," he said, his voice steady, "I have longed for a companion, but none have agreed to be mine. Will you be my wife?" Terrified and alone, the princess nodded. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Meanwhile, back at the palace, news of the princess's abduction reached the king's ears. Overcome with grief, he decreed that whoever found his daughter and brought her back safely would be named his heir and given half of his kingdom. Warriors scoured the forest, but the princess remained unseen. The king believed her lost forever, and mourning engulfed the palace. 2 days later, a wandering villager stumbled upon the hunter's hut and spotted the princess sitting outside. His eyes widened in disbelief, and without hesitation, he ran back to the palace to deliver the news. "My king, your daughter is alive. She is in the forest, residing with a hunter." The king's sorrow turned into blinding fury. "This man has stolen my daughter and caused me untold grief. Guards, seize him at once." The hunter was dragged before the king in heavy chains. His pleas fell upon deaf ears, and his explanation was dismissed as lies. The king's judgment was swift, execution at dawn. That night, as the hunter sat alone in his prison cell, despair gnawed at him. He had saved 3 lives, yet he now faced death for his kindness. As he buried his face in his hands, a soft, familiar hiss echoed through the silence. He looked up to see the snake slithering through a crack in the wall. "Hunter," the snake whispered, its eyes glinting in the dim torchlight, "I owe you my life. And now, I will return the favor." The hunter listened carefully as the snake revealed its plan. "When the king comes to witness your execution, I will bite him. Cares will follow, and when they seek a cure, you must be the one to offer it. That will be your salvation." At dawn, a crowd gathered in the royal courtyard. The executioner stood ready, his blade gleaming under the sun. The king arrived, his heart hardened against the hunter, prepared to witness his punishment. Just as he raised his hand to give the order, the snake struck. The king gasped as the venom coursed through his veins. Panic erupted, and the royal advisors shouted for a healer. "I can save the king," the hunter cried. "I know the antidote." With urgency, the hunter was brought before the dying king. He quickly mixed herbs and crushed roots, forcing the bitter remedy between the monarch's trembling lips. Slowly, the king's breathing steadied, and his strength returned. His eyes fluttered open, locking onto the hunter in shock and disbelief. "You saved me," the king murmured, "even after I condemned you." He turned to his advisors. "Release this man at once. Not only shall he marry my daughter, but he will also be my heir." The hunter stood before the palace, dressed in fine robes, his fate forever changed. As he marveled at his newfound fortune, he felt a presence beside him. "Do you remember my words, hunter?" the snake whispered. "I promised to save you one day." "Yes," the hunter replied. "You have kept your word." The snake coiled slightly, then added, "But I never said you would live happily ever after." Before the hunter could react, the snake lunged, sinking its fangs into his ankle. The venom spread rapidly. The very creature that saved him had sealed his fate. And so, the hunter's tale became a legend, a warning about the fine line between war and happiness. And so, my dear friends, the hunter who once stood at the crossroads of life and death found himself lifted by the very kindness he had given. A single act of mercy had set forth a chain of events, some cruel, some kind, but all leading him to a destiny he never imagined. What does this tale teach us in today's world? It teaches us that kindness should never be measured by immediate reward but by the impact it has over time. Sometimes, those we help may turn against us. Sometimes, they may stand by us when we least expect it. But in all things, goodness has a way of finding its way back, though not always in the way we anticipate. In a world where trust is scarce and betrayal lurks in the shadows, let this story remind us, be wise, but do not let the fear of deception stop you from doing what is right. A good heart, though tested, will always shine through in the end. If you found this story as powerful and thought-provoking as we did, don't let it end here. Like this video, share it with others who need to hear its lesson, and subscribe for more mesmerizing African folktales. Hit the notification bell so you never miss another legend. And remember, fate may twist and turn, but goodness will always find its way home. Until next time, may wisdom guide your path.